Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Tara Hawley. I'm the Scholarships Manager here at the Australian American Fulbright Commission. And today I'm going to be talking about awards that are available for academics and professionals. So that's those that are at the postdoctoral, the associate professor, full professor or level, or those that are professionals. So they've got approximately 10 years experience within a particular field. Now, I might just start by talking about just briefly the history of Fulbright, which will link in quite nicely with the Fulbright values that are here on the page. Now, it might be interesting to take note of some of this history because it really explains what it is that we're looking for in a successful applicant and why. Now, Fulbright was the brainchild of a Senator, William Fulbright, who after World War II just had this idea that if people understood each other better, people to people, face to face, culture to culture, that things like World War II wouldn't happen again. So he had a possibly even better idea of taking to the US Senate an idea of, well, what if we sell off surplus war supplies and we use that money to fund a scholarship exchange program so that Americans can go to places all over the world and vice versa, that scholars and students from countries all around the world can spend some time in the United States. Now, the Australian office is going into its 70th year, and we're just one of about 160 countries that operate this exchange between Australia and the US. So this year we'll be sending about 55 Australians to the United States, and we'll be receiving about 35 Americans. Now, within those applications, we're looking for a few things. We're looking for applicants that show and display a passion for their field of work or study, that can outline a vision for themselves and their communities, that can show demonstrated excellence through achievement, that can indicate or outline innovative, creative, inspired thinking, can show the capacity to develop long-term partnerships and collaborations, particularly internationally, and almost most importantly of all, that display ambassadorial skills. So when we look to give someone a scholarship to go to the United States, where we want people who can not only be a great representative of the Fulbright program, but just knowing that because this program is all about contributing to the bilateral relationship, we just want to ensure that our scholars can also be a great representation of Australia. And just to clarify before I go any further, that these awards are just for Australians that are hoping to go to the US. So if you are an American applicant, whilst this webinar could be interesting, it's not particularly as relevant for you. So just keep that in mind if you wanted to continue. Now, as mentioned, we're going to be talking about just a few different fields of scholarships today. So the postdoctoral scholarships are for those who have completed their PhD in the past 5 years and wish to conduct postdoctoral research in the US. Now, these scholarships are available for anywhere between 3 to 10 months. We also have a range of scholar awards available, and these are for those that are academics at associate professor or full professor level, or mid-career professionals who have an undergraduate degree, but also a minimum of 10 years work experience within their sector. And this is for those who wish to go and undertake research and or training, like professional development training in the US for 3 to 4 months, and it can be in any field or discipline. And the same goes for the postdoctoral scholarship, so they're not restricted to any particular discipline. We also have just one distinguished chair scholarship. Now, this is for an individual who's at full professor level who wishes to carry out research in the US for up to 5 or 6 months, but this one's particularly for those in the fields of agricultural life sciences, and this scholarship is hosted by Kansas State University. Just to get into the scholarships more specifically, now, at the top there, it outlines a general Fulbright postdoctoral scholarship. So these are ones that are funded by the Commission. So these can be, again, in any field or discipline, and we've got 2 of these awards available. So when you applied in for the application, you're automatically considered for these 2 postdoctoral scholarships, but all of the other awards that I talk about from here are ones that you can elect to additionally be considered for. And the great thing is that you don't need to fill out multiple applications to be considered for multiple awards. You just need to identify whether or not you are eligible for that specific award. And then within your application, on the very start of the application, it says special awards. You can note these ones down if you'd like to be considered for them. So the first one I'll talk about is the Fulbright Postdoctoral Scholarship. Now, it's sponsored by RMIT University, and it's part of their Vice Chancellor's Postdoctoral Fellow Program. Now, the exciting thing about this is whilst it does include the 3 to 10 months in the US for research, it's part of a 3-year fellowship at RMIT University. So you would not only spend the time in the US, but you would be employed by RMIT University for 3 years. And as part of that 3 years, you would spend up to 10 months in the United States. So this is for those that would be willing to move to Melbourne for this fellowship. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at the award. But it's an amazing opportunity to both receive a Fulbright, but also secure a fellowship as well. So make sure you check that one out to see if that's something that you would be interested in doing. Another scholarship that we have just at the bottom there is the Fulbright Postdoctoral Scholarship sponsored by Monash University. Now, this one is just to fund an Australian who happens to be doing research of importance to Monash. So they're looking for applicants which address the grand challenges of our age, regardless of disciplinary background. Now, the only additional consideration for this scholarship is when you return, Monash would like to bring you to Monash University and you can tell them about how your time in the US went. So it can be in any field, any discipline, and it is sponsored by Monash University. So a great one to additionally be considered for. Now, that is all of our postdoctoral scholarships, so keep that in mind, but I might actually just jump ahead to make it a little bit easier. So this year in 2018, we've launched the Fulbright Future Scholarships. Now, these are open across all levels, including postdoctoral candidates. Now, the difference between this and all of our other ones is that we have about 20 of these available this year, and it's for research or projects that are innovative and or have the potential for significant impact. So say, for example, if your research will contribute to an important medical health finding, or if it will result in job creation for Australians. We're looking for tangible impacts. So you can just note this on the special awards section that you'd like to also be considered for a Fulbright Future Scholarship, but you need to include an impact statement as part of your application. So what are the specific tangible impacts that you hope to achieve as part of your postdoctoral research? And same said for all other categories that are looking at this now. Now, I might just see, no, it's not on here, but just while we're talking about postdoctoral applicants, we also have 2 awards available for Indigenous or Torres Strait Islander candidates who can just elect to additionally be considered for this. So there are 2 available under the Fulbright Indigenous Scholarship. There are up to 20 available for the Fulbright Future Scholarships, and to jump back, 2 for the general awards, and then each of these sponsored ones. So that is up to 30 awards just there on its own that you could be considered for in one application, so long as you make sure that you are eligible for each of them and that you note on your application that you wish to be considered for each of them. Now, just to move on, I'll talk about Scholar Awards next. So Scholar Awards are, again, for academics at associate professor or full professor level, and also for mid-career professionals who have an undergraduate qualification and at least 10 years work experience in their field. Now, just in that general category, so all fields, all disciplines, there are 5 available in 2018. And again, you can also elect to be considered for the following. We have the Fulbright Professional Scholarship in Not-for-Profit Leadership, which is sponsored by the Australian Scholarships Foundation and Perpetual Limited. So this is for professionals in the non-for-profit sector who wish to go and conduct research or professional development in the US with an approved US charitable organizations. So an applicant, you must be from a non-for-profit organization to apply. So if you do fall within that sector, please make sure you look up this opportunity on our website to read a little bit more about it. But it is a fantastic opportunity for those in the non-for-profit sector. Now, if your research happens to be in the area of the Australian-US Alliance, we also this year have the Fulbright Professional Scholarship in Australian-United States Alliance Studies. And for 2018 only, there are 3 available this year. So if you happen to be looking at defense, security, or the broader bilateral relationship, whether that's trade, economics, or politics, Things that are of interest to both alliance partners, this is a fantastic opportunity for you, and 2018 is definitely the year, considering that we have 3 available just in 2018. So you can elect to be considered for that one. So that's 3, for example, available for in the alliance area, and then 5 in the general. So for example, you could be considered for 8 within the one application. Now, if you are in the area of vocational education and training, there is a professional scholarship available there, and that is sponsored by the Department of Education and Training. So that's for individuals in the vocational education and training sector or training leaders in business and industry, including teachers, managers, and administrators of private and public registered training organizations. So people who are leading vocational education strategies within their business, staff within universities that teach in the training skills sector, etc. So take a look at that one if that is your field, and there is one available for that award in 2018. Another is the Fulbright Professional Coral Sea Scholarship, Business Industry. So this one was to commemorate the 50 years since the Battle of the Coral Sea, and it's for early mid-career professionals, ideally under 30, who are looking to do a short course of study or conduct research that is relevant to Australian industry or business. A few more awards available. The Fulbright Senior Scholarship sponsored by Kansas State University. So this is for those that are at associate professor or full professor level who wish to go to the US for 3 to 4 months, but this is specifically to go to Kansas State University. Similarly, the Fulbright Distinguished Chair in Agriculture and Life Sciences, sponsored by Kansas State Universities, are for those at full professor level who wish to go and conduct research at Kansas State in areas of agricultural life sciences for 5 to 6 months. Now, just again mentioning the Fulbright Indigenous Scholarship is also open to scholars and professionals, and you could go for 3 to 4 months, and there are 2 available this year for our Indigenous and Torres Strait Islander candidates. I'd also like to mention that every single state and territory in Australia has a scholarship dedicated to that home, to that state or territory. Now, these ones are looking for candidates that can display that there will be benefits to the home state through these projects. Now, if you are from Tasmania, ACT, or Northern Territory, whether you're a postdoctoral candidate or a professional or a scholar, you can elect to be considered for the award in your state. All other states are only for postgraduates. So only Tasmanian, ACT, and Northern Territory-based applicants can apply for the Fulbright State or Territory Award. But just make sure you take a look at that. To be considered for the Fulbright State Territory Award, you would just need to include a statement that just outlines how your projects encourage and profile research relevant to your home state or territory and assist in building international research links. So essentially, your statement will say something along the lines of, upon returning from the US on my Fulbright, my goal is to continue the research links that I will make whilst in the US, which could have these outcomes. So just talking specifically about, does it address a particular issue within the state or territory, or how will it bolster research in that area? Just how is it relevant to either Tasmania, ACT, or Northern Territory? So again, that's quite a lot of scholarships that are all available under that one section. And as already discussed, the Fulbright Future Scholarships also are available to our scholars. So just meaning that if your project has quite tangible impacts, so things that will contribute to Australian society quite broadly, that you would consider innovative, then please make sure you check out the Fulbright Future Scholarships, because as I mentioned, there's about 20 available in that category. So there are a huge range of awards that are available across these fields. So it's just making sure that you've taken a look at them, made a note about which ones you're eligible for, and make sure that you follow the criteria to ensure you've submitted any extra documents that you need to be considered for these awards. But just talking about real basic eligibility, now these awards are only open to Australian citizens, whether that's by birth or naturalisation. Applicants can hold dual citizenship with any other country that is not the United States. So if you are an Australian, Chinese citizen, or any other country that's not the United States, that's fine. But if you happen to hold US citizenship or a green card, you are unable to apply for a Fulbright award. Now, you must be a resident in Australia at the time of application, except as it notes there, those that are serving in the armed forces or Australian diplomats posted overseas, you must be here. And that is especially because there are interviews that are conducted through August, September, and we need our applicants to be in country. Now, just a minor thing to keep in mind for now, but Fulbright scholars must travel on a valid Australian passport, and the scholarships are contingent upon the candidate's ability to secure a J1 visa. Now, what do these scholarships include? All of them. It doesn't matter what level you are, but they include a monthly stipend that's paid pro rata depending on how long you go for. Now, they're designed to be above the average monthly maintenance rates in the US. And if you take a look at our website, you'll be able to download our budget document, which has the specific amounts. All of the scholarships include an international travel allowance. So that's to cover your international return flights to the US. Some scholarships include an establishment allowance. So that means it's an amount of money that's paid right at the beginning of your scholarship, designed to help with those upfront costs, like paying a bond and setting up a US phone and that sort of thing. Most of these scholarships include a dependent allowance, which is a one-off payment, which is just designed to offset some of the costs of bringing a dependent with you. And if you have questions about dependent visas, please get in touch with the office. But essentially, you can take dependents as part of your J1 visas, and you can apply for working rights. But that's only if they're coming with you for most of your program. If they're just coming for a shorter period of time, we just recommend getting one of the visa waiver visas, just the 90-day visitor visas. Now, all of these scholarships include ASPE health and accident cover. So that's just a basic policy, just in case there is an accident or a health issue. Now, another thing that I might mention that's not listed here is if you happen to go to an institution which charges visiting researcher fees, we do have allowances built into most of our scholarships to assist with those costs. Now, not every, and especially not most institutions have them, but some, for example, Stanford University charges about $500 a month to be a visiting researcher there. So most of the scholarships have an allowance for that built into it. We also provide access to professional networks. Since over the last 70 years, we've sent or received and sent 5,000 Australians and Americans. So one thing, for example, that we can do is if you were going to Boston for your project, before you head off to Boston, we would let all of our alumni, American alumni that live in Boston, know that you're coming, so that way they can welcome you and be a part of your immediate network. But we also let all of our Australians who once went to Boston know that you're going, because then you've got someone who's actually been through this, and you can ask them, where did you live? Where did you send your kids to school? Just get some advice on what it's like to actually live in that particular city. Now, on top of that, we also run an orientation program each year. I'll go through the timeline shortly, but a couple of months after our scholars are selected, we bring all of our recently selected Australians and all of our recently arrived Americans together, and we run a 2-day orientation program here in Canberra. And that gives everyone a great opportunity to learn more about the program and ask all of their questions. But most importantly, it's to network with each other. Also, our colleagues in Washington organise enrichment opportunities, meaning that, say, let's keep the Boston example, if you are heading over, they might get you to stop off in Chicago because they've organised a 2 or 3 day program where Fulbrighters from all over the world have come together. So you might meet Fulbright scholars from Japan and Sweden and Germany, but they brought them all together at one time and place to further extend your professional networks. Also, as part of the scholarship, you receive extensive support from the Commission Office. So we really go through the process with you step by step. So we handle everything with you in terms of what you need for your visa, what you need for the Fulbright program, working with your host to get your program set up. We really do every step with you to ensure that you are prepared for your time in the United States. Now, in terms of the application itself, if you jump on the website, you'll see a tab called Australian Applicants. I definitely recommend starting there. So on that page, you can read just some more of the baseline eligibility and conditions, but there's also a great link to the FAQs. So we've tried to get all of our most frequently asked questions just in one place so that you can check to see if the answer to your immediate questions are there. If you have really personal questions, of course, you can send us an email, but at least start on the FAQ page and read that first page just to check what you're eligible for and answer some of the basic questions. From there, I would then recommend jumping over to the scholarships pages, and reading a little bit more about all of the awards that I've discussed today, just to check to see, what's included. Am I eligible for them? Could I also, tick the box to make sure I'm considered for this one? Now, if you put your application together, I might go into some more, I'll go back to some more detail about the applications itself. So we'll get to the timeline, but applications are open from the 1st of February to the 15th of July. Now, I recommend looking at that sooner rather than later so that you can see all of the inclusions that are needed, but I'll just talk through some of the basic ones. Now, as part of your application, you will need a project statement. So this tells us, well, what is it exactly that you want to do? Why is it important? Why the US and on a Fulbright specifically? And what are your projected outcomes? So that's more of the business side of it. So you need to include that statement. Alongside that, you'll also submit a personal statement, which is actually a lot more difficult to write. Now, this answers some of those other questions about the criteria that we're looking for. So that the project statement tells us what you want to do, but the personal statement tells us why you want to do it. You might want to highlight here what got you interested in your particular area. Why are you passionate about it? And this is also a great place to kind of flesh out some of those values that we're looking for, like an example of your ambassadorial skills or your capacity to make long-term partnerships or linkages. So you'll need a project statement and your personal statement. You'll need to upload your resume or CV. And you'll also need to put in 3 references, so 3 referees. So with the system, you'll put in their name and their email address, and then the system will send them like an automatic email. They click on a link, and then they can fill out a reference report for you, and it's confidential, so you won't ever see it. So a few things to keep in mind. 1, make sure you ask your referee before you put down their details. Secondly, make sure they receive the link. Sometimes with the university security systems, it does go straight to spam. So just make sure that they've at least gotten it. And then next, make sure that they have submitted. I cannot tell you how many times an application has been marked ineligible because they didn't have enough references. Their referees just simply forgot to submit. Now you need a minimum of 2 and you have a maximum of 3. So with your referees, just make sure you try and diversify. You don't want 3 people that say the exact same thing about you. If you can get some diversity in the kind of strengths that they focus on for you, that can be quite strong. But the most important thing is make sure that they fill it out and make sure you're selecting people who are going to truly say positive things about you. Again, it's unfortunate when we read a negative referee report because, of course, the applicant won't ever know. So make sure you know these people quite well and you follow up with them to make sure that they have submitted their referee report. Now, if the only other things that you will need is you'll need those statements. So if you wanted to apply for the Fulbright Future Scholarships Program, you'll need an impact statement. If you wanted to be considered for the state or territory award in ACT, Northern Territory or Tasmania, make sure you've got a statement that addresses how your project or your time in the US will be of benefit to your state or territory. And then just make sure when you're filling out your application, especially on that in the first section where it says special award, if you are eligible for multiple awards, just make sure you list them there. So ensure that you've done that so that we can make sure that you're considered for as many awards as possible. It's just better to throw your hat in the ring for as many as possible that you're eligible for. Now, if you wanted to talk to a previous Fulbrighter to get their advice, if you jump on our website under campus advisors, you'll see that there's someone that's allocated to every university in Australia. So you could get in touch with them, ask maybe some of their tips and their advice, and they might even be interested in reading your application. Please keep in mind that whilst people from your actual field or discipline will be reading your application, there will be some people that are not from your specific field. So use layman's terms and make sure that someone outside of your discipline has taken a look at it and they understand it and it makes sense to them. There's a checklist that you must include with your application, but most importantly, all these things aside, if you go on the Australian applicants page, scroll down until you see the scholar application instructions, and that's going to go through step by step everything that you need to include and things that you don't need to include. It really just spells it out for you so you can make sure that you're submitting a valid application. Now, the application system we use is used in 160 different countries. So that means that it'll ask for some things that we just might not need here in Australia. Like, for example, for countries that do not speak English as the first language, those applicants are required to submit English testing scores. But for Australian applicants, you don't need to submit that. But if you hadn't looked at the instructions on our website, you might have missed that and spent time trying to get testing done and uploading documents and filling out sections that you just don't need. So please make sure you read the application instructions. And no matter what the actual application says, our instructions are the step-by-steps that you really need to follow. So what happens? So applications close July 15th at 11:59 p.m. And I suggest not trying to submit at 11:59 p.m. Try and get them in nice and early just in case, 100 other people are thinking the same thing and the system kind of bogs out a little bit. What happens from there is we spend a week here in the Fulbright offices doing a technical review of all applications. So we just want to make sure that all the applications that have been submitted are valid and eligible. So we take a week doing that. And then we forward those applications on to our discipline committees. So these are the people that actually are experts in the field that you are in, and they review projects specifically. So whilst they read the whole application, their real focus is about the relevance of your project to the discipline. Does it make sense? Does it have the potential for positive outcomes? They really let us know which of those projects we should be supporting. So what they do is they go through and they rate all of the projects as highly recommended, recommended, or not recommended. And then only the highly recommended and recommended applications proceed to the next level. The next level is our interview committees. So they receive the applications in August, and they kind of take a whole person approach to reviewing. So they'll read the project statement again, but they're also really taking a close look at your references, your personal statement. Did they address some of those criteria about ambassadorial skills and capacity to make long-term partnerships? They just look at it as a whole person approach. And again, they mark those as highly recommended, recommended, or not recommended. And the recommendeds and highly recommendeds are invited for interview. So interviews mostly take place through September. And if you look on the Australian applicant page now, the dates for interviews are already up on the website. So you could see which dates they are. Now, from memory, the postdoctoral and scholar award interviews are the last week of September. Now, because these awards specifically are Australia-wide, we'll be conducting them all on Skype. So what happens then is in October or early November at the latest, we will let applicants know the outcome. And the only reason it takes so long is because we need to get our recommended candidates endorsed by both our board in Australia, but also the board in Washington. So that can sometimes take a little bit of time. But by early November, you will know the outcome. And then the successful applicants will be invited to an orientation and gala presentation dinner, which will likely take place late February 2019. And as part of your scholarship, we fly you in and take care of all of the costs that are associated with attending that event. Now, that is everything. I'm sure you might have lots of follow-up questions as you get into the process. So the best way to do that is to send us an email, and that is fulbright@fulbright.org.au, and we generally respond within 24 hours. So if you have any questions, just try and email us, and that way if there's a link that we need to send you or some follow-up information, we can put it in writing for you, which is often a little easier than doing it over the phone. But if you would like to call us, the contact number is 02-6260-4460. But again, check out our website. There's so many great things on there. There's more webinars like this one. There's the specific information about the scholarships, the FAQs. You can jump on the alumni page and check out the profiles from alumni for the last 10 years and kind of get a sense of the types of projects that we have supported in the past. But there's heaps of content available on there. And of course, feel free to get in touch. We are here to help you through this process, so don't be afraid to reach out. Now, again, all the best, and don't forget to submit before 11:59 p.m. on the 15th of July, and we really look forward to reading and receiving your applications. So best of luck.